Well, I think that DFID and the development goals and the huge expansion in aid from the UK was the proudest achievement of the Labour government. I think it was brilliant, and we've got to carry that on. We've got to make sure that the Conservatives and the Liberals don't go backwards, but also that Labour keeps leading the charge and the case on this. And for me, it's about resources. It's about, but it's also about campaigning, and it's about persuading other governments to join in. I remember before the 2005 live big concert, Bob Geldof going on the Jonathan Ross show and saying that 10 years before, or 20 years before, with Live Aid, they thought the issue was raising money. What they now realise was they could have a global campaign to persuade governments to put in millions and millions of pounds, and that's what your campaigning does. That's what Bob led to the campaign Make Poverty History. That's what we needed. We actually said to campaigners, keep the pressure on. So it's about campaigning and about delivering, and we've done that. Let's carry on doing it. Yes, I do. And to be honest, I think we all know it's got to be done through international discussion and agreement. It's quite hard to do this credibly on anything other than a small scale as an individual country. But I've committed to doing everything I can to deliver that international agreement. Let's have a proper Robin Hood tax. I'm right behind the campaign. I think that what happened was that the world wasn't ready for agreement, and that's a tragedy. I actually think that, to be honest, that Tony Blair and then Gordon Brown did everything that they could, with great support from right across the government, to try and get the trade round moving. But it takes time to persuade businesses, some countries, to look above their own narrow self-interest and see the greater good. It's really important that trade happens in a fair way, and there's proper access, and that you need to make sure that you get the proper standards in place. But fundamentally, open trade, in my view, is good for the economy and good for development. As a Labour Party and a trade union movement, we've always been internationalist in our outlook. We've never been protectionist. We've never just looked inward. We've always seen the opportunities and the obligations for our country in an open world. And it's obviously frustrating, but let's keep the pressure on. Well, look, it's about not being put off when things don't work out, and clearly what happened in Copenhagen was hugely disappointing, and but we can't just sort of give up at this stage. And you can't also say that when the economy is in a more difficult time that we can sort of back off, because actually there are lots of jobs and there's lots of potential for economic growth which comes from investing in climate change, as well as our obligation to make sure that the poorest and most vulnerable countries in the world don't suffer from climate change. And I think in the end, it is about international cooperation, governments coming together. You've got a Conservative Party in Britain which is anti-European, when it knows, or it should know, that collaboration, cooperation with European partners is vital for us to make progress on this. And it's also about culture change. When I travel around the country, as I've done in the last few years, visiting schools, and you talk to a primary school and say, what's the most important thing? Today, children will say, to protect the environment, to make sure that we are fair to other children around the world. And then you say, what practical action does that mean? And they'll say, turn the tap off when you brush your teeth. Make sure that you turn the heating down at night. Turn your TV off when you go to bed. Little things which actually build up to a big cultural change. And if the next generation of young people coming through says, look, we will play our part and make our contribution, then it will take time, but we can deliver on that climate change obligation and make the world a safer place. Well, I think you measure the civilization of a society by how you treat the most vulnerable in your own society, but also the contribution you make to that effort around the world. And I think it's really important that we keep focusing on reducing poverty in Britain. And that's why I think the tax credits and the national minimum wage are very important. But at the same time, look, we've got a massive obligation to make sure that children all around the world get chances that they should have as a basic human right. The right to go to school, to have decent sanitation, to be able to survive those childhood diseases. And that's something that Britain has led. Let's carry on doing it. I think even in difficult times, it's a priority for us.